Hello, Scribe. What are we doing today?
We are coming together to make the definitive, totally not definitive, tier list for the Scions of the Seven Dawn.
Completely objective. This is the truth.
I am never wrong. So...
This tier list is fact, and there's no dispute.
No dispute at all. But for those who want to kind of join in on the fun at home, this tier list is based off of raw combative power. We are judging the Scions of the Seventh Dawn based off their accomplishments not only in the story, but things in the lore that suggest what they are truly capable of, based off of not only context clues and side content, but what they accomplish in general.
Yeah, feats of strength, or magic, or destruction of any kind. Basically what we've seen them perform in the story.
Pretty much, because at the end of the day, Final Fantasy XIV is a combat-heavy video game. So what better way to celebrate Final Fantasy XIV and its characters than by placing them on a list that says, this person could definitely beat the crap out of this person.
Hey, I mean, if Death Battle can make an entire channel based off of that, then, yeah.
If Death Battle can do it, why can't we?
Why can't we? We definitely have the budget. Come on, throw up the animation.
What's that? Caddy!
Go!
Give us some doodles.
Yes, and high-quality voice acting.
High-quality voice acting. Yeah. None of that AI crap.
Yeah. Reject modernity. Return to voice-to-text. Or text-to-speech. Yeah. Remember Microsoft Sam? I do.
Do you remember RB and the Chief?
I fucking love RB and the Chief.
I remember RB and the Chief.
Oh,
and
man.
I love them.
So much of it has not aged well, but I still quote that daily.
Oh my god, so many great things to enjoy on the internet growing up. But, yes, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, our tier list of raw power and combat shall begin with an all-time favorite of the Final Fantasy XIV community, Y'shtola Rule.
Or, as I like to call her, the most mid-scion. Hey-oh, send your emails to business@JoCat.net and tell me how angry you are.
The comment section's already on fire.
Okay, Y'shtola. So we're doing them in the order that of appearance, essentially, throughout the MSQ. And Y'shtola is introduced to you as the first scion at the very same time as the other three, depending on which class you pick at the beginning. She is the introductory scion for Limsa Lominsa. And I believe she is probably the baseline most competent of the original Scions. Kind of perhaps arguably comparable to Popelio in terms of just like knowledge and competence.
You're not wrong. The story has gone out of its way multiple times to reinforce that Y'shtola is a very text-savvy woman. She's able to read through an entire library's worth of knowledge and glean exactly what she needs from it, and she's applied that to her spellcraft as well. She adapts healing magics and offensive magics seamlessly because of how adaptive and talented she is in the world of Arcane. And of course, the story has gone out of its way to show that. She has shown on multiple occasions she knows what she's doing in a fight, but is also able to vary her spells to summon familiars, apply buffs and debuffs to characters, both allies and enemies, and a few other things as well.
Yes, and her sight blindness gives her ether sight, which I think is more of an advantage than not. And I know everyone has their own feelings as to its story value and plot value, but regardless, I think most can agree that her ether sight is an advantage. It is definitely something that gives her a benefit more than a detriment. And I know some will point out, oh, well, it's draining her life, and there's a bit of contention and divide there.
The translations aren't clear on that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we have a clear understanding of what that might mean, and since we haven't really seen that in practice, then I think we can safely assume that that is not a big factor in deterring her from doing big damage, as the kids say, because
if it is draining her life, it's doing so in a way that we cannot observe. So it's hard to judge.
Y'shtola is definitely a character that I believe, if she cannot overpower an enemy, she can definitely outsmart them. Her intelligence is through the roof. She's able to devise plans or learn about weaknesses where people probably would struggle, even with like years of scholarly work, to figure out.
Definitely. She is very book smart, but because she's book smart, she does show instances in the story where she lacks, I guess you would say, in D&D terms, wisdom. She would have a maxed out intelligence score for sure, but because her intelligence is so high, she believes she's already figured out the answer to a problem, when sometimes just a different perspective or a different outlook would cause a world of change. So with that, I cannot comfortably put her in S tier like I think many people would. And I think people would put her in S tier because of just popularity bias.
Because they like her, yeah. Which
exactly.
is fine.
They would put her in S tier just because they like her, and I cannot agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think she belongs in something like a B tier because she does prove herself to be competent, but I cannot put her in S because she also does things that are really stupid, like casting flow more than once, which is really dumb. Like, now I could go
You know what they say, though, if it's stupid but works.
Oh my god. Well, that's the thing, though. The only reason she survived casting flow on both occasions was because she had friends that were strong enough to, like, find ways to get her out.
That is fair.
Like, if she did not have the Scions, if she didn't have friends, Y'shtola rule would be dead. Simple as that.
Okay, well, devil's advocate. Not that I just want to scrutinize that point for a little bit on behalf of the audience that definitely will. Counterpoint, is her trusting with her in her allies no different? Is that no different than relying on the resources that she has and knowing where her limitations are, knowing that they're going to pull her out?
Definitely say that, but the actions of another Scion later down this list will contradict that.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. I'm playing a long con here.
Okay. Me personally, this will get me absolutely bombarded by the 14 community, but me personally, I would put her in B tier. And spoilers, that's where I would put most of the other starting Scions as well. But I have no qualms about putting her in A, if that's where you believe she might be.
I would definitely put her in low A tier. Low A tier. Like, she's definitely not top A. She's not quite a B, but she doesn't sit comfortably in A just because, well, while she is accomplished, she does show lack of foresight sometimes, and there are other actions that other Scions have done in the story that kind of make some of her choices seem a little silly. As we will see later down the list. But that's where I would put her, low A, and it sounds like you're more or less is in a similar ballpark as me.
All right, you can give us your angry opinions in the comment section below.
Oh, they will, whether we ask for it or not.
Yeah,
that's the nature of YouTube.
All right, I'm satisfied with putting her in A.
All right.
Also, for reference, for those in the audience, how we devise this tier list is we believe everyone in one tier can defeat, like 99 out of 100 times, everyone below them in the tier below. So that's how we're rolling this.
Yeah, anyone in A tier would most likely be able to beat up, like, anyone in the tier below them, just on the nature of the gap.
Yeah, that's not to say there aren't situations where a B tier couldn't possibly beat an A tier. I'm sure there's
always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, there's a quote by the late and great Stan Lee that who would win in a fight? Whoever I write to win.
Pretty much, whoever wants to win at the moment. All right.
Speaking of writing, everyone's favorite bard, Thancred Waters.
Oh yeah, Thancred's next.
What do we think of? What do we think of everyone's favorite Midlander?
Honestly, I feel like people give him a lot of crap because the story focuses on him more than once per expansion, and they're kind of like, okay, enough about Thancred. But honestly, it has been fun in a way to kind of watch his growth and development from just some smoozer parties who spies on occasion to a straight up like freedom fighter and reconnaissance master. Like he's
grown a lot.
He is the survival expert of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn for sure. Mm-hmm. Like if each of the Scions were suddenly like thrown into like the wilderness with nothing but the clothes on their back, my money would be on Thancred to survive above all of them, simply because he knows how to do so.
I can agree with that. He's also got the most hand-to-hand combat experience of any of the Scions, I believe anyway, barring the Warrior of Light, perhaps.
He definitely is most accomplished in CQC compared to most of the others, and a little known fact, he is the one who taught Manilia how to fight.
For what that's
like,
worth.
I know.
For all that fighting that she does in the story, you know.
I know. The NSQ does Manilia really dirty because in the lore, she does know how to fight. She does know how to defend herself. Now, she's definitely not Warrior of Light levels by any means. But when she was the leader of the Path of the 12, like, she needed to defend herself, or she needed to know how to fight in order to find and train other people that had the Echo. Mm-hmm. And the one who made sure she knew all of these things was Thancred Waters.
Mm-hmm. Another point in your favor, he trained another Manilia, Reen, in the first, who was part of the process of when they stopped training Manfilias, so all of her combat training is reliant on Thancred as well.
Exactly. And in order to properly train someone like that to the point that they're able to be that competent in a battle, just goes to show that he really has already mastered all of his skills, despite the debilitation he has now.
It's okay, Thancred. It happens to all of us. It comes with age.
Yeah. Guys, Aether deficiency happens to everyone at some point.
It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Nothing to be ashamed of. Go talk to your local aetherologist.
Go talk to your local aetherologist if you experience aether sickness lasting 4 or more hours.
Pretty much.
I feel like he is, like, I respect Thancred a lot as a character who is able to push past his boundaries, because in many senses he might as well be a Garland. He's still got some ways to tap into his ether, but at a much more limited way than a typical Eorzean would be able to. And for that, I think the fact that he's able to stand toe-to-toe with the other Scions in terms of like what they have to face in terms of danger and power scaling while still suffering from his ethereal deficiency really speaks to how strong this man's man is.
Indeed. And the reason I would actually put him higher on the list than most people likely would is because of one very obvious fight he had in Shadowbreakers. Mm-hmm. The fight against Ranjit.
Yes.
He 1v1'd Ranjit, a character that gave no end of trouble to many other NPCs in the story of Shadowbringers, and he didn't struggle as much as he should have.
Right. I was actually going to comment something about that in that this is not my opinion, but I know a lot of people actually have a lot of contention for that point of the story because they believe, and I feel like this is a valid belief, that Thancred shouldn't be able to go toe-to-toe with Ranjit when even the Warrior of Light couldn't. And maybe that's a valid take, but regardless, the story says that he can. Yeah.
But the fact that Thancred Waters, a character that shouldn't be able to fight that well, but does, despite the, I guess you would call it the deficiency or handicap he has, it just speaks to his skill.
Oh yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing.
So, this might be contentious, and people may disagree with me on this, but if it was a one-on-one fight, I would actually put Thancred one little notch higher than Y'shtola.
Ooh. I agree with that spicy take.
That might sound like heresy to a lot of Y'shtola fans out there, but we have to remember that when it comes to raw combat potential and like 1v1 encounters, Thancred has proven to have more experience than her. And won. That's the biggest thing. In these life or death encounters, Thancred has won more of his like life or death fights than Y'shtola has.
Y'shtola rage quits. She casts flow whenever she's losing.
She casts flow, or she's not alone. Is what I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That
Y'shtola rule is rarely alone. Thancred, on the other hand, has gone out of his way to do reconnaissance, survive, and fight all by himself, even with the inability to use magic anymore. So I think that because he's learned to overcome his own flaws and problems, that he would be able to overcome even a strong mage like Y'shtola, because he has overcome powerful opponents before.
Yeah, I would say it would come down to a war of attrition, and I don't think Y'shtola has the stamina to keep up with Thancred, personally.
He's got a strength of will that few would be able to match, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Alright, so that puts Thancred firmly in the A tier, a smidge above Y'shtola.
And we're only 17 minutes in.
Only 17 minutes in.
Yeah, 2 characters down.
Moves us on to Ida/Leas Hexed. And honestly, I'm going to be blunt here. This is basically just going to be about Leas.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, Ida has a place in the story, but not really in the Warrior of Light story. Like, you never really get to know Ida like the NPCs do. So we're just going to kind of ignore that fact.
Yeah, she's more of like a tertiary side fun character that just kind of says witty comments and before she gets soft retconned into a different character because they didn't really know what to do with this fun bubbly girl.
Pretty much.
So we're just gonna
miss.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, we're gonna be referring to Leas specifically, and I think Leas is okay. Like, she's fine. She is what I would call the baseline fighter for the Scions. She's not incredibly experienced. In fact, in some ways, she is incredibly inexperienced, as depicted in Stormblood. Not only in combat, but also in tactics, politics, just general knowledge and stuff, which, is her arc, and her learning about that stuff. But, of course, she's no slouch. Like, she can hold her own. She fought... one of the lieutenants of Gaius Van Baelsar, and with some help from Y'shtola, and was able to survive the encounter. She's taken down no small amount of foes by herself as well. But
she kicked a Namazu 20 feet in the air.
Yeah, which is always a plus in my book, but I would consider her baseline. Personally.
She knows how to fight, and she knows how to win against your average citizen. She could beat up anyone.
Yeah.
But when you start to compare her against people with actual sizable power, you really get to see, like you said, her inexperience. Which is why I feel it's very comfortable putting her in B, low B tier.
Yeah. Because it's really easy to tell that, as we mentioned earlier, everyone in A probably beats her. Most.
Thancred definitely beats her. Y'shtola most definitely beats her.
Y'shtola trips her with a single foot.
Trips her and then asks her how good her shoes are.
Yeah. Not really a lot to say about Leas. For me personally.
Because not even the story had a lot to say about Leas.
Ooh,
hey-o!
Alright, Popelio.
Popelio. Okay. This one is in my personal opinion, Joe, Totolimo is the dark horse of this list. He is the undisputed heavyweight that no one knows. Because the story does not give him a lot of time to show off what he's capable of. In fact, it goes out of its way to kind of just gloss over him half the time. However, we have to remember a few distinct things about his character. He's always accompanied Leas, or accompanied by Leas, and they've never had trouble. Every situation they've been in, he was able to get them out.
Yeah.
Like, when the entirety of Ul'dah turned on the Scions, like, the only way Y'shtola saw out was casting Flow. Popelio said, screw that. He just got them out of there.
That is true.
Like, and then, everything that Leas wanted to do, or any problem they encountered, he always made sure that they got through it. Nothing was ever able to overpower him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, at the very end, now of course, as anyone watching this probably knows, he dies. But, he dies doing something he shouldn't have been able to do. He perfectly recreated Louiswa's sealing spell by memory with no preparation. Sure, it cost him his life, but no preparation, no incantations, no nothing, just a broken tube samadhi in his hand, and he was able to create a nigh-perfect reconstruction of a top-tier spell in moments.
There's a reason why they call him Louiswa's greatest student.
Exactly. Popelio is much stronger than the story ever lets the player know.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why despite his passing in the MSQ, I would comfortably put him at the top of A tier.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. If anyone does believe that, Shinryu was still able to break out, so was Bahamut, and Shinryu's even stronger than that. And keep in mind, Louiswa was able to cast the kind of capturing orb spell with the help of the Scions praying at the other kind of statues of the 12 all throughout Eorzea. Popelio did it himself.
Louiswa had the good graces of having time, preparation, and incantations put in place to make sure the spell was as powerful as possible.
Mm-hmm. Popelio did it then and there, and it probably lasted.
He just did it then and there, and with nothing but his own personal ether.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it did cost him his life, but his life was all that was necessary to contain a god.
Mm-hmm.
That is no accomplishment that should not be overlooked.
No small feat.
No small feat, yes.
Yeah, I would comfortably put him quite possibly at the top of A tier. We'll have to see if he stays there as we go down the list, but yeah, I believe if we had seen more of him in the story, it would possibly reinforce that. He is probably the strongest starting Scion, in my opinion.
Definitely the strongest starting Scion, based off of context clues. Like I said, the MSQ does my boy dirty, but that if you read between the lines, you should be afraid of this angry potato.
Oh yeah. It's like, if he can do that, what else can he do?
Exactly. If he had preparation, what else could he have accomplished? But
he's like Batman. He beats everyone with prep time.
With prep time, yeah.
Next, the most powerful Scion, Tataru.
Oh no.
The secretary in charge of all of their finances and all of their outfits as well. Obviously,
yes.
S tier, she bodies everybody else on the list. There's nobody, not even the great Estinian himself, is able to escape Tataru's wrath.
She is the greatest Scion of all time because of one thing and one thing alone. She's good with money.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, just like the whelps in reality, such as we, Eorzeans are unfortunately slaves to capitalism, and Tataru knows this and uses it to her advantage.
She really does. She may be a master of the mercantile trade, but when it comes to combat, unfortunately, Tataru does claim the lowest seat in D tier.
Yes, we all love Tataru, but she is a civilian.
We all love Tataru.
She is a civilian, she is unarmed, and although I'm sure some people are going to point to that one side story where she was able to send a carbuncle so far, indicating that she is quite possibly a dormant, what are they called?
A savant?
Yes, at arcanistry. We never see that potential realized, so we can't know for sure. Maybe.
Plus, there are other ways for that carbuncle to have gained another chunk of ether at some point. But again, that's all conjecture.
Maybe we'll see that power realized some point in the story. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in the final act of Dawn Trail, we'll see her come to our side and aid us and single-handedly, like, one-punch the boss. But until we see that, I think it's safe to say Tataru is an innocent civilian with very little to no combat prowess.
Tataru turns out to be the primal of finance.
She was the one who told the end singer that everything is pointless.
Yeah, pretty much. Pointless, so bye now. But no. Like Joe said, she is essentially civilian grade, and we also have to remember that she straight up confesses that she does not know how to fight and cannot fight on her own in Heavensward. She names a champion in the trial by combat because she, by her own confession, she cannot fight. And in a fighting tier list, that puts her at the bottom.
But on a lovable tier list, we all love her. Please don't hurt us, Tataru.
On a financial tier list, on who's great with money and who's not, she's definitely top of S tier, with Estinian being at the bottom of D.
Yes, if we're doing a finances tier list, Estinian we'd have to make a new tier just for him alone.
We'd have to make a new tier just for him. But speaking of people that don't really fight, Minfilia War.
Minfilia. I have mixed feelings about Minfilia on a writing level, but luckily we're not talking about that. We don't see her do a lot in A Realm Reborn onwards. I am not familiar with what she does in 1.0, so I didn't play 1.0. Is there anything that indicates her kind of combat strength in that area?
No.
Oh. Okay, so it's all just kind of implied.
All of her combat knowledge is talked about, like, off-screen. Like, every time the lore brings up that Thancred trained her, she knows how to use a dagger, and yada yada yada. It's all just in writing. You never actually see it.
Right, so we have to take the game's word for it that she probably does know how to hold her own, but we've never seen it.
But the game also shows that in every situation where she may or even should have defended herself, she loses. Or gets captured, or let's be honest with ourselves, Joe. She's the Princess Peach of Final Fantasy XIV.
She kind of is. I am glad that they gave her a little bit more retroactively as the expansions have gone on, but she has unfortunately fallen into the damsel of distress role.
How you feel about that, like, changes based off of who you are, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Girl gets captured. A lot.
Now here's the question. Do we put her in C, or just simply higher than Tataru in D?
I personally would put her higher than Tataru in D.
On account of her apparently anecdotally having some kind of combat experience, and perhaps bumped up due to the echo as well, because I'm sure that at least gives her some insight into her enemy or her surroundings, which can be advantageous no matter who you are.
Exactly. She should know how to fight, which means that if she was to fight Tataru, she would win. However, the game doesn't show that, so we can't put her any higher. Oh, poor Minfilia.
Poor Minfilia.
But no. She will sit as the antecedent of D tier. But, moving on to characters that have shown proficiency in combat, the Leveilleur twins, starting with Alphino Leveilleur.
Yes, the know-it-all himself.
Oh. You know, it would be a great idea. The Crystal Braves.
This boat represents a boat. Taking my friend through ARR again, and it is rough seeing pompous Alphino again. But
Heavensward did a lot to make his character lovable.
Oh yeah, he was humbled. He ate an entire humble, like, menagerie.
The humble pie was shoved down his throat.
But yes, I think the twins are competent. They are decent, especially considering that they are still a little bit underage. They're still teenagers.
Honestly, that's the biggest thing holding them back. Despite their know-how when it comes to combat in the world and survival, they have not reached full physical maturity, which, as the lore clearly states, how old you are and how mature your body is does influence how much personal ether you have. Which means that the twins have not reached their full potential yet. They're not at the level of strength that they could eventually become. Which means that in a battle of attrition, they're going to fall short simply because they don't have the magical endurance to keep up with many other NPCs.
Yes. Yeah, and we see this in practice as well. During the fight with the Warriors of Darkness, Alisaie casts a very powerful spell that she needs a little bit more help doing. Whereas I believe probably a fully grown Alisaie probably would be able to do it all on her own, as I would also believe Y'shtola could probably cast that incantation on her own as well, being fully grown Makote woman.
Oh yeah, and we even see her do that during the fight against Magni over in the Azim Steppe.
Yes.
Yeah, she's eventually, once she gathers enough ambient ether, she's like, yep, time to end this.
So in that sense, I am willing to put the twins in the B tier, acknowledging the fact that they very, very likely, once they mature and age and start to get more life experience and combat experience, are probably going to be able to reach equal measure or even surpass the OG Scions in terms of power scaling.
Definitely. Like, given time, they could become easy A tier and maybe even S tier. Just based off of... They have more experience in their young little lives than most people do in an entire lifetime.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the idea of what they're going to be capable of once they reach full maturity is would be impressive if we weren't in a time bubble.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, maybe once we go through that time skip for Dawn Trail, maybe we'll see Alphinaud and Alisaie tall and strong, but MMOs being what they are. Now, here's go on.
B, I could see, but personally, I would put them on high C.
High C. Interesting.
High C, mostly because, like I said, they do know what they're doing. They are extremely talented. But again, they lack the endurance of people much older than them. If any of the characters above them in this list decided to, like, let's say 1v1 them, the battle, they lose. Simply because the battle of attrition, they would run out of ether from casting spells before their opponent.
Okay. All right. You've made your case. Now, here's another fire starter.
Let's do it.
Which twin would win?
Alisaie would beat up Alphinaud.
Oh, disagree. Strongly disagree. my man Alfie is a tactical man. He thinks things through. She's too hot-headed.
I see that. I see your point, Joe, and I raise you the fact that Alisaie's thesis at the Charlene Academy was purely based off of combative magics.
Oh,
The thing that made her graduate from the Scholasticate was her paper on how to hurt people with spells.
Counter to your counter, Alphinaud took on several Crystal Braves by himself and escaped unscathed. While being a healer...
While being a healer. Well, if you throw enough carbuncles at the problem, something is eventually going to turn out. But not honestly, maybe, Joe, this is a good argument for our listeners. Do you take my side, audience, and believe Alisaie would beat up Alphinaud, or do you take Joe's side and think Alphinaud would beat up Alisaie? Let us know your opinion in the comment section below.
Yes, for now, this is a hung jury.
Exactly. Currently, we're 50-50. We need a tiebreaker.
Yeah. But I'm content with putting them in high C, as you said. I would argue for B, but I'm not too upset.
High C or low B. Like, either or would work in my mind. Though I would say Leas would probably be able to beat them.
I mean, Leas is just a fully grown Alisaie, let's be honest. She wears red, she's hot-headed, and she's loud. Like Alisaie.
Like Alisaie.
You can send your angry emails to business@JoCat.net.
Oh, jeez. That email box, actually...
I don't check it. I should. That's where all my sponsorship deals happen.
Check it. Oh, no.
I forget to.
Well, I'm glad I didn't meet you through business email.
Yeah.
Dang.
You'd be buried.
Oh.
Just like how our next contestant will be buried under the scholarly books that they read, Orion J. Arguelt. Is that how you say it?
Fucking 10 out of 10 segue.
Everyone's
Orion
favorite
J.
quadruple crosser. This man plays 5D chess like it's Farmville.
He plays 5D chess so well, people expect him to play 5D chess.
Yes. And then when he pulls out checkers too, and then you're like, whoa!
I wasn't expecting this.
All right, what do we want to put Mr.
God.
Arguelt, which I did not know was his last name until Endwalker.
Orion J has proven himself to be quite talented with magic. Not only do we see him in the healer position with astrologian abilities, but a little known fact, he is able to take a DPS stance in the game.
Oh.
Yes. During the fight with Heidelin, now it all depends on your job, but if like you're a healer, I believe it will turn him into a DPS. Essentially, a summoner without summon spirit.
See.
Yes. So he's still able to enter Dreadworm trance and stuff like that, but he doesn't summon Bahamut or Phoenix. And the funny thing is that the lore does not mention this at all, suggesting that he figured it all out
Came
on
up
his
with
own.
it. Damn. All right. Now, we, of course, grain of salt, we are taking into account that they possibly are just reusing assets so they don't have to come up with an entirely new moveset. But if we're to take everything that we see in the game as canon, that has implications that this man knows how to create new spells and new jobs just because of how wrinkly his brain is.
His knowledge makes him dangerous, but he is often someone who chooses to solve problems diplomatically above all else. He uses combat as a last resort more often than not. And because of that, I feel like he has a mastery of support spells more than combative spells.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah, like, much as he has combat experience and capabilities, he's much more the guy in the chair. He much prefers to bury his nose in books, learning about things, much like Y'shtola, which is why they get along so well. But even more so, he prefers to keep his focus on learning and helping everybody else, like, figure out things rather than fight himself.
He wants to help bring out the best in you.
He's very much a support in that sense, not just in the terms of making support spells, but supporting others to actually do the fighting. Which is why I possibly high B, low A.
I was about to say the same thing. High B for sure. Like, top of B tier. Top of B tier, he can beat Leas. He can beat the twins and anyone in C or C and D tier. But he struggles behind people like Y'shtola and Thancred because he just does not have the offensive mindset that they do when it comes to combat spells.
I believe if put under pressure, Urianger is the kind of person who would overthink things and possibly hesitate, and that hesitation would cost him the fight.
Plus, I bet there are, like, some people in the comments already saying, like, put him in D tier because he keeps standing in AoEs in my
Yeah,
trust
but he
dungeon.
stands in JoJo poses, so that bumps him back up.
He really he gets bumped up to B just for JoJo poses.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, pretty much. High B it is for you, Urianger. But moving on to his main squeeze, Moonbrita. Best girl at me.
Too soon.
Everyone's all like, oh, Y'shtola was best girl. No.
Get you a girl who talks to Urianger like Moonbrita does. That's a best girl.
You wife her.
Instantly.
Like, you meet a Moonbrita in your life, you wife her right away.
You never know when you're going to lose her to using Tupsamati.
You never know when an answer is going to pop up.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
but
Moonbrita suffers a similar problem as Popelio in that she's in the story for so little, and we see so little of what she does, it's kind of hard to parse what her full potential actually is. But we know that she is a combatant. She's a marauder. She uses an axe against, what's his name? Nasal guy. Nasal Brialis, that's his. Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, Nabrialis, that was his name.
Yeah, she of course she didn't beat him, but of course he's an Ascian. He was able to trap her axe. But that's what I mean, right? It's like we don't see her use the axe against anything else, so we can't glean what she can beat, only what she can't. And not being an
but we have seen her beat something.
Oh,
with
have
her
we?
axe. Yes, remember in that same scene where she attacks Nabrialis, you walk past dead monsters on your way up to her.
Oh, that's right.
She killed everything to get to the pile of crystals that she was going after, and she didn't even break a sweat.
That is a detail that I've missed. Not to mention, not only is she the brawn, she's also the brain. She is the person the Scions reach out for, scholarly study when it comes to aetherites, as she is probably the smartest one that they know when it comes to that sort of magical kind of knowledge.
She is the whole package. She can suplex a monster and also best you in literary rhetoric.
So she is, she's no slouch when it comes to intelligence and possibly some, knowledge that she can apply during fights as well. It's just hard to place her because we don't see her do a lot. She's in the story for so short.
Which is why I can't put her any higher than C tier, unfortunately.
Yeah, like, if she had just, I don't know, one more feat of strength or prowess somewhere that involved combat, not just defeating an Ascian by using Tube Samadhi and her own ether, but, like, something else we could possibly compare her to Leas. But it's hard to know. We lack that knowledge. So, yeah,
I get the feeling that if she, was aware that the fight is going on, she could beat up Leas, probably. But again, that's conjecture. We just don't know too much about her.
We don't have any comparable feats to put her up against Leas.
Exactly. So she's kind of just ambiguously in the C tier. I don't know where to put her in here.
It's C tier, but I don't know that either of us are really satisfied with that. But of course, there's only so much we can draw upon.
There's only so much we can do.
On the flip side, though, someone who we have seen time and time again in just about every scenario doing some sort of new feat of strength, is the Azure Dragoon.
Estinian! Estinian Varlano. He is an extremely talented Dragoon. He was so talented that the Eye of Nidhogg recognized him and granted him the benefits that come with being the Azure Dragoon. He has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he not only knows how to fight, but he knows how to kill.
Oh, yeah.
It does not matter how big the opponent is or how competent they are. He is a danger to anyone who he is made to fight against. I applauded in Endwalker when, you get to the top of the tower or over in Garlemald, and the villains are monologuing as they usually do. Estinian just jumps up and he's all like, enough of that.
It doesn't matter that they blocked it. What matters is he was ready to kill them mid-speech.
He had already figured out, if I do this, they will die. And that is
Man
scary.
can Stardiver just off the bat. He starts with Stardiver.
He just opens with the killing blow, and that should scare most people. And I think, as such, he is the first and easiest S tier.
Easy S. Man takes down an entire Garlean cannon by himself with thanks to just his own prowess and being the Azure Dragoon and having a spear imbued with Nidhogg's blood as well.
Just a little soak.
Just a little soak, but that's enough, for this guy.
Just a little soak, and that's all it took.
Easiest S tier of all time. I would argue
Easiest
the
S of
strongest
life.
character in the game, barring the Warrior of Light, but we'll see about that as we get further down in the list.
We'll see about that as we go down the list. And we actually hit another contender.
Oh, yes.
Here. This one is tricky.
The Cat Boy.
Everyone's favorite cat boy, Gratia. Everyone's favorite foodie.
Yeah,
now.
he eat the taco, the big fat tacos.
He eat the burger. He eat the big fat taco. He's just a happy boy with his food. But this one's tough because there's a lot of different types of Gratia. We meet Gratia when he was just like an archer during the 2.0 Crystal Tower quests. We meet him as the Crystal Exarch and Shadowbringers, who was another Gratia separate from ours. And then our Gratia inherits the memories of the Crystal Exarch, which is which means that he's not the Crystal Exarch, but he's not altogether our Graha anymore either.
And he's this weird, in-between, both in terms of experience and also power, since further away from the Crystal Tower, he doesn't necessarily have all the abilities the Exarch did.
Exactly. The entire reason the Crystal Exarch was so strong was because he had tied himself to the Crystal Tower through arcane means. He was able to draw upon a font of ether compared to anyone else. That's why no one could beat the Crystal Exarch. That's why no one could, just invade his territory. But our Gratia, the one in the source, he doesn't have any of those benefits. However, what he does have is the Crystal Exarch's knowledge, and that is intimidating because the Crystal Exarch had more than a lifetime's worth of knowledge when it came to not only tactics but spellcraft and natures of the arcane.
Yes, just in terms of sheer years, the Crystal Exarch is probably the wisest and just most accumulated knowledgeable scion. That's a sentence that exists. Just the fact that he has been around for 200 years now.
Way too long for most people. He has more collective knowledge than Louis Swan Leveilleur.
Possibly all the Scions combined, because who knows how many times he's poured over the records in the Crystal Tower of, all the Alligans, who also were extremely advanced in their era.
Exactly, and not just poured over them, but mastered them as well. So, while our Gratia does not have the same wealth of ether that the Crystal Exarch did, and while he does have the Crystal Exarch's knowledge, the application of that knowledge is what makes him powerful. He always fulfills the support role, but we have to understand that the reason he's able to kind of just move between tank, DPS, and healer without a care is because he has efficiently converted more than a century's worth of arcane
mastered
knowledge.
It all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why whenever he swaps between the roles, you notice he doesn't have a single specific weapon for that role. It's made of light ether, akin to the ones that we get in Palace of the Dead. He's just producing these weapons himself and using them.
Exactly. If he needs a tool that he doesn't have, he'll just make one.
And that's even outside of Crystal Exarch, when he's away from the Crystal Tower, not tied to it anymore. We even see that in Endwalker, when he's able to save basically everyone in the Tower of Babel, was it?
Yes, when it was disappearing, he used essentially, what's that spell in D&D?
Featherfall?
He did mass Featherfall. He cast mass Featherfall on everyone, dozens if not hundreds of people all at once, and now of course it drained all of his ether to do so, but that's impressive.
That is purely a limitation of his body no longer being tied to the Crystal Tower, perhaps. But the knowledge and skill is still there. In fact, he was able to perform
which is why he is definitely an easy S tier.
Now, I would make a case for two versions of Graha. I would put Crystal Exarch above Estinian and current timeline Graha below Estinian, simply because of that limitation of his body, where I feel in a war of attrition, Estinian would possibly outlast him.
Not to mention, Estinian wouldn't be afraid to immediately go for the killing blow, unlike Graha, who is a bit of a softie.
We have to take that into account. Estinian's ready to kill. Graha, not so much.
Estinian is out for blood. So, no, I can definitely see that. If Estinian fought the Crystal Exarch, definitely he would lose, because the Crystal Tower alone gives him enough ether to match that of an army. Our Graha, while still very powerful as a mage, he does not have that wealth of ether, and he also just doesn't have that killer instinct that Estinian does.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on, we have another mage in our list, Joe. Would you be so kind as to
Good old
address
Kryl Baldessian, everyone's favorite Alphino bully, and
You can't
No,
hate her.
you can't.
For,
She's
for
lovely.
That.
She's great. She's wonderful. Coolest, like, fun aunt. She's like the fun aunt that you have over and your friends and you hang out with. And, like, she takes you to the R-rated movies, you know?
She is definitely the most matronly of all the Scions. Like, if I was having a bad day, I would go to Kryl.
Also, the second person on the list who has possession of the Echo.
Oh yeah, she also has the Echo for sure.
Now, she is more of a healer, more of a support. As noticed in Endwalker, we do see her in somewhat of a combat role, very limited. So she is able to go out into the field, but it's still fairly limited. That said, though, it is still more than we see Manilia do. So she can definitely survive. She can definitely survive out in the field.
We know she has combat spells because we've seen them. However, Kryl, by her own admission, has never had a strong affinity with offensive magics. Like, she straight up admits that the healing arts mesh with her better than offensive magic. And that reflects. Like, you often see her in a support role, in a healing role, and the story goes out of its way to reinforce that. So in a straight up brawl, in a fight with anyone, I can't put her too high on the list, but she's not inexperienced either, so I would kind of throw her in the same boat as the twins of Burito. Right,
I would say
C-tier.
low C, just due to the fact that she, like you said, by her own admittance, is not a fighter. Like, she can fight, she can hold her own, but I think in most scenarios she would prefer perhaps an escape route.
she would prefer to summon someone who can deliver the killing blow, probably Estinian.
Yeah, and he would gladly oblige,
Oh,
or
yeah,
fearfully oblige.
pretty much.
One of the two.
Yeah, what is it with Estinian just being intimidated by potatoes?
It's because he's got a soft spot. So yeah, Kryl, low C. I think we're in agreement there. In the
We're
most
definitely
loving way
low C
possible,
for
low
Kryl.
C. She
Exactly.
is not a fighter.
She is extremely competent as a mage. The most positive
Affectionate.
low C we can give her.
Low C, affectionate.
the most affectionate C. But speaking of affectionate people, we're going to move on to someone who is one of the most empathetic Scions, Oran and all of his exploits.
Yes, he's only in the story for a short period during a single expansion and a little bit during the Shadowbringers post-story, but I still feel like he qualifies as a Scion just because he was part of Scion B Team and he becomes more relevant and has a larger role in the story in Stormblood and post-Stormblood, and he has the Echo, and he is no slouch when it comes to combat. So I wanted to throw him in as just sort of a potential talking
Most
point.
definitely. He pops up more than once. Like, you get briefly introduced to him early in the story, then he plays a major role in Stormblood, and then he continues to play a major role in post-Shadowbringers. Like, you don't send a guy who can't fight to a tower filled
with only one
monsters.
other person to help him.
With only one other person, a confirmed convict.
Yes, a war criminal.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So they trust that he knows how to fight and how to take care of himself. Unfortunately, as we all know, he does suffer a grim fate and loses the ability to use his legs. And what will the story do more with that in the future? Who knows? Unfortunately, at the moment, that's kind of the end of Oranvold's story at the moment. But before the unfortunate circumstance of losing his ability to walk, I would have safely, and I mean safely, put him in B tier.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Comparable to Leas, possibly above her, just by account of having the Echo, which provides its own advantages in combat.
The Echo provides him certain advantages, and just by the very nature of the missions that he was given as a member of the Scions.
Oh yeah.
He was given dangerous missions, but he came out relatively unscathed.
Yeah. Not a lot to say because it's very he's very cut and dry as to his power scaling, but you know that's not a bad thing. I think he's a very competent fighter. He's a very cool character, and I like where they're going about his story with how much you don't have to be a fighter to be a hero, and that his work isn't done just because he can't stand anymore. You know?
Exactly, like maybe.
And I just love his banter. He's the sunshine to the doom and gloomy shadows of the what's her name, the angry lady. There's too many characters in this game.
Fordola. Fordola Lupus.
Fordola, yes. His relationship with Fordola is always fun to watch, and seeing as they were paired together, it shows that they are at least on the same footing in terms of combat, and Fordola is absolutely nothing to scoff at. So, indicator of where he is. Yeah, hi B.
Hi B.
Hi B.
Definitely comfortable B. But that, ladies and gentlemen, will move us on to our final scion of this list. Our last posthumous mention as well. The original hero, Louisoix Leveilleur.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Everyone's favorite grandpa. Now, a lot of people haven't played 1.0, which means they don't really have an appreciation for the kind of man that Louisoix is. Like, the MSQ goes on and on about how great of a man he was, but unless you, like, played the game with him around, you never really understand why so many people admired him. Like, not only was he a very, very talented mage, but he was also an accomplished diplomat, a tactician, a family man. He was everything you could hope to be in a person, which is why so many people admired him and modeled themselves after him. Mm-hmm. And with Tup Samadhi in hand, he is an easy S tier.
Ah, you know? Yeah, okay. I was originally going to say high A, but considering his experience and his years, I'm okay with an S. Perhaps I would argue the lowest S tier. Just the matter of fact that...
Low S or high A?
Yeah, just due to the matter of fact that low S is not powerful. It's just that I feel Graha and Astinin have performed crazier feats than we have seen Louisoix, like since. That is not to say Louisoix did not perform an incredible feat on his own. He did. But, you know, when compared to
You're
the others.
right. It's just like we said earlier. Graha now has knowledge that supersedes his entire lifetime. Like, as knowledgeable as Louisoix is, and he is knowledgeable, he does not have that amount of knowledge, which is crazy to think about. But that does not mean he is inconsequential either. He could definitely... He taught the Scions who we've been listing this whole time, like, half of what they know. And the entire reason they're so strong is because he was so powerful.
And he taught them what he knows.
Exactly. The entire reason Popelio was so strong was because Louisoix was strong. The entire reason Y'shtola was able to learn more after leaving Matoya's side was because a just as powerful and competent mage replaced her mentor.
Yep. And I believe Louisoix also has the strongest case of someone who can withstand whatever fight they're in just by sheer force of will. Like, we see that in his fight with Bahamut, that he had enough just stubbornness to stand up to this dragon, combined with all the prayers and ether of, you know, the entirety of Eorzea wanting him to win as well. But, like, he also needed to stand up to this dragon himself. Which,
before even invoking the incantation, he was able to block multiple blasts from Bahamut that would have leveled cities.
Yep.
It just goes to show that... Now, of course, Tup Samadhi did make a big difference for him. That is a relic weapon if I've ever seen one.
even yeah, aside from that, with any other staff, he would still be an extremely powerful wizard.
Extremely powerful because he not only knows what he's doing, he has experience, and tons of it.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I think the lowest S tier.
Lowest S tier it is. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on screen, this is our tier list. And as you all heard, we gave a few notes based off of our personal experiences, observations, and takes. You are free to disagree with us. This list here was just something that Joe and I did for funsies. What was it, Joe? We had this idea like a year ago or something? Don't want to think about time passing?
Yeah, and I don't want to think about how many other projects I said that I was going to do last year and still haven't yet.
Isn't that just the nature of creation, though?
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me on.
No, anytime, man. And, like my friends, if you feel differently, don't be afraid to let us know in the comment section below. We definitely understand that there's going to be people that disagree with us, but we also want to know why. What did you see that likely we did not address in the story that you think changes the placement of some of these characters in the list? I look forward to seeing what some of you say down there later on.
I don't. If you disagree, fight me. Meet me in the wolves' den.
1v1 me, bro.
1v1 me, bro. The winner gets to, I don't know, say the other one's...
The one's stupid.
I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm not good at immediate comebacks.
Oh, man. But, no. Other than that... Yeah, you satisfied with this list, Joe?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I still think Alphino would win, though.
Eorzea, her gumption, man. Her gumption.
It's gonna get her killed. I'm calling it. She's gonna make a wrong step. She's gonna poke the wrong bear.
She's already poked up. She's killed bears.
That is true. She eats bears for breakfast.
She eats bears, and meanwhile, Alphino doesn't know how to swim.
Yeah, but he makes friends with the bears.
He makes friends with the bears. Yeah.
Alize, listen, who wins? Alphino versus one bear, or Alize versus